So good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on part 2 of chapter 6 of book 2, right? Which is Spirit Life. We started this item last week, which is the commemoration of the dead, funerals. We went through the first couple of questions, and we are going to start today on question 322. Okay, Philip?
Do forgotten spirits whose graves are not visited by anyone come despite that fact and feel troubled at not seeing any friends remembering them? What is earth to them? They are only linked to it by the heart. If no one loves them any longer, there is nothing that can make spirits feel connected to earth. They have the whole universe before them.
Okay, so we were talking about all these saints, which was November 2nd, right? Kardec asked the spirits the importance for the spirits that went back to the spiritual world of that day, and the answer from the spirits was that as long as they are remembered, the day doesn't matter and the place doesn't matter. Also, what matters is the remembrance. That's what they feel. If it is important for someone to go to the cemetery to remember their loved ones, that's fine. The spirits may be there with them if needed. But if they remember at home, the spirits will be connected to their loved ones at their home. So here, this question is, what about those spirits that have no one, right? We on the study of the medium's book this Sunday, we were studying the case of a spirit that was causing some disturbance in Paris, and his case was addressed by Kardec in the medium's book and in the Spiritist Review of 1858. And one of the things that the spirit tells them is that nobody remembers him, nobody pays attention to him. So he was happy that someone paid attention to him and invoked him. So, of course, we are going to have those people that end up losing connection to all of their loved ones and all the living beings that lived while they were incarnated, and they go back to the spiritual world and they may feel forgotten. But as the spirits are saying here, if they have no connection on the incarnate ones, what is earth to them? We are spirits that belong to the universe, right? We are on earth for a probably longer period of time, because that's where our loved ones and our problems reside. So we normally have to come back here to reincarnate on earth, to be reunited with our loved ones, to make amends with the ones that we have issues. But if there is nothing that links us to earth, there is not really a necessity for us to stay here on earth. We can be transported to a different world and continue our journey there. As the spirits say here, they have the whole universe before them. Again, depends on the level of evolution of the spirit, the level of understanding, the attachment to, maybe they are not attached to material things, but to human beings or incarnated spirits, but they are attached to material things on earth, right? Their vices, their addictions. So that may keep them connected to the planet and connected to those that can fulfill their desires. But, in theory, if nothing connects them to Earth, they're free to move away from Earth. We know that the almost absolute majority of us are not spirits that have had the first incarnation on earth. We came here already after having had some incarnation. So, you know, if we came from somewhere else, we can go back, or we can go to somewhere else also. Okay? All right, next.
323. Does a visit made to its grave provide more satisfaction to a spirit than a prayer made on its behalf in someone's home? A visit to its grave is a way of showing that one is thinking of the absent spirit. It is the exteriorization of the thought. I have already told you that it is the prayer that blesses the act of remembering. The place itself is of little importance if the memory comes from the heart.
Okay, so we spoke about that, right? If someone needs to go to the cemetery, goes to the burial site of the person to better remember or to feel a connection, there is nothing wrong with that. We know, we learn in Spiritism that what counts is the thought, is the connection that we have vibrationally. Now, there are people that feel the necessity of going to the cemetery to be connected to their loved ones. My mother used to like to go to the cemetery to visit her parents on their birthdays, on important dates. She loved to go there. She felt good, and she was not religious at all. Actually, she was not. She had doubts that we survived the death of the physical body, but she liked to go because she felt a connection to her loved ones. First her parents, first her mother, then the parents, then the siblings that went before her. So what is the problem? If it was good for her, good. Now, if we are studying, and again, studying Spiritism and understanding the connection between us and our loved ones that are in the spiritual world, we need to understand that the thought and the prayer, wherever we are, is much more important than any physical place. But as I mentioned last week and several times, if someone thinks that lighting a candle helps them to pray, that's fine, light a candle. But if you don't have a candle, you cannot pray, that's when it becomes a problem, right? Any exterior act that may help us on our daily work, we are imperfect spirits. We may need physical objects still, and that's fine. But in terms of understanding the necessity of these physical objects, or to go to special places, or to go to church, then we need to understand that it is maybe we will have to go to a transition phase to get rid of it. Maybe we won't be able to get rid of it in this incarnation. It will take some incarnations, and that's fine. But the first step is for us to understand that the important connection is from our heart to their heart. They will receive our vibrations if we think, we lovingly think of them here in the physical world, wherever we are. Okay?
$324. Do the spirits of individuals who are to be honored with statues and monuments attend the inaugurations and watch them with pleasure? Many watch them when they can, but they are less sensitive to the honors paid to them than to the memories.
When I read this question, every time I come through this question, I think of Kardec, right? Kardec's tomb in Père Lachaise It's one of the most visited tombs in the cemetery. Père Lachaise is a very famous cemetery in Paris. All the famous writers, philosophers, singers, there are buried there. And Kardec has his tomb there. He was not originally there, but he was transferred there, I think, a couple of years after he discarnated. And it's a beautiful tomb with Celtic stone there. How it's called, the dolmen, and of course visited mostly by Brazilians, right? That go there to Paris and want to visit Kardec's tomb. Now, you know, when you read this, how do you think Kardec feels? Happy, or it doesn't make any difference? You can imagine, right? Kardec is for sure much more evolved spirit than we are, but still, right? To see the honor to his, because I think it's more to his work, not to the individual. You know, he will be pleased with the memories, with the work. When individuals, again, when these monuments or these statues bring to the deceased ones, to the spirits, a sense of pride in the negative way, then I don't think it's very positive, right? If they are, you know, if they feel pride for being honored with street names or monuments or statues, and pride in the sense of, you know, selfish pride, then it is a problem. But again, there is no problem in honoring important individuals with monuments, with statues, with streets, because it's a way for the new generations to keep their memory, at least to bring out the curiosity of them trying to understand who was this person and what they did. You know, if you have a street called Nelson Mandela, and he calls the attention of some youth to look who was this Nelson Mandela and learn more about the work that he did, it's positive, and I'm sure he would be pleased with people remembering him, even if it's through a street. But again, do they need that? More evolved spirits? No, they don't. They are, I'm sure Chico Xavier is not very interested in all the visits to the tomb and all the things that are done to his name in Brazil nowadays. But you know, if it's important for people that go there and that feel more connected to these individuals that were special individuals, you know, it should be okay, right? We should understand that. Okay.
.325. Where does the desire come from where certain persons wish to be buried in one place rather than another? Do they return to it with more satisfaction after death? And is the importance given to a physical thing a sign of a spirit's impure nature? A spirit's affection for certain places is a sign of moral inferiority. What does one piece of earth represent more than another to an evolved spirit? Doesn't it know that its soul will be reunited with its loved ones, even though their bones may be far apart? Should gathering together the moral remains of all the members of a family be considered meaningless? No. It is a pious custom and a witness to the sympathy of loved ones. If such gatherings mean little to spirits, they are nonetheless useful to humans. Their memories are better concentrated.
Okay, so when we when we talk about people buying burial places, right? Special burial places because they want to be buried somewhere more important or more pleasant. You know, I heard people talking about being buried in where they have a nice view, right, and things like that, or being buried in a more important cemetery than another. These are all signs of lack of understanding of our spiritual nature, and a spirit affection for these places, of course, is a sign of less evolved spirit, because our physical body doesn't represent anything to us after we go back to the spiritual world. It's like when you donate your clothes, right, to used clothes to some place that will make better use of it. Do you want to know where it is, who is using it, where it goes? You know, the majority of people does not care. We need to understand that our physical body is exactly like that. It's just a cloth that we are wearing in this incarnation for a certain period of time, and when we leave the physical body behind, it's going to decompose and go back to nature, and that's how it should be. So where it is doesn't really make much of a difference for those that understand their nature as eternal spirits and the nature of the physical body. And to be close to your loved ones in the burial place doesn't mean anything, because we need to be together with them in the spiritual world. And that sometimes we can be buried next to our loved ones and not find them in the spiritual world because of their, you know, their or ours different of vibrational levels. But the spirits, when Kardec asks if there is any meaning in burying the family together, the spirits say it's a nice, a pious custom, and a witness to the sympathy of loved ones, right? Because, of course, if it means something to the incarnate ones, right? You know, my mother, when she went to the cemetery to visit her parents, they were both in the same tomb, which makes things easier and more pleasant for the one visiting. So, you know, as the spirit said, their memories are better concentrated. If it's helpful to you humans, then it's fine. More and more people are choosing to be cremated nowadays. There is a question that always comes when we talk about this subject. So if nobody's asking, I'm preempting the subject. According to Spiritism, again, there is the cremation of the physical body is the same thing as burying. Doesn't make any difference. You know, if you can burn your used clothes, if you decide not to donate, it doesn't make any difference. Now, according to Emmanuel, in the book The Consoler, who was finally published in English and will be available very soon for those that want to buy it. It's a book of questions and answers written by Emmanuel in 1941, which is a very interesting book. He said that it's better to wait up to 72 hours before cremating, to make sure that all the connections between the perispirit and the physical body are disconnected. It doesn't mean that the spirit is going to feel anything. The spirit is not. And it goes together with donation of organs, right? Donation of organs is an act of charity. Every time you donate your organs, the doctors need to remove them very quickly after the physical body dies. The spirit is not going to feel anything because it's an act of charity. The spirit will be protected. The separation from the spiritual body from the physical body will be done in a manner that the spirit won't feel anything. Okay, so these are two important points that there are always questions about that, cremation and donation of organs. Okay, questions here? Yeah.
It's interesting because my grandfather, he bought a tomb at cemetery in Rio, and the document that is stating who can be buried there.
Really?
Yeah. So he bought that long time ago. So it's interesting because it's him, his wife, kids. He didn't mention grandkids.
So you have
So
no
can
place
be
to go?
Wives can be the son-in-law, can be cousins of someone else, but cannot us grandchildren cannot be buried there.
Interesting.
It's interesting, right? Yeah. So
Do you mind?
probably not, because probably it can be real. But anyway, it's interesting because we cannot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. But again, there are certain in the tombs in Brazil, right? You have the drawers, right? That you have a certain number of caskets you can put there, right? I know in my parents there are 6, I think.
Yeah, I don't know the number, but and it's interesting because my mom, she's not in a, I would say, good relationship with her sister, and I told her, watch out, you two be buried together.
They can be separated by, left side or right side. Well, I'm going to be cremated, so I won't have a problem there. It's nobody can visit me anywhere. All right, questions?
326.
Let me see. Nobody has any questions. Okay, so 326.
Well, my version's too.
Is a soul that has returned to life as a spirit sensitive to the honors paid to its mortal remains. When a spirit has already reached a certain degree of purification, it has no more earthly vanity, and it comprehends the futility of all these things. Nevertheless, you should know that there are spirits who, in the first moments of death, take great satisfaction in the honors paid to them. Others become disturbed if they see that their envelope is being forgotten, because they still hold on to some of the prejudices of this world.
Yeah, it's similar to the question we already discussed, right? When someone is honored, do they value it more or less? And depends on your level of evolution, right? In the book, I came back, I returned, it's not translated, it's called Voltaire, which Brother Jacob describes his process of discarnation. When he was a director of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation in the beginning of the 20th century, and he met Chico Xavier when Chico was beginning his mediumship journey. And he asked the spirits that he would like to be awake, almost awake during his discarnation process, so he could come back and tell through a medium, and actually it ended up being Chico, his story, right? And the book is all his struggles in understanding how difficult it was to give the communication. And as we go through his, he describes his discarnation and wake. He is present in his wake. He's taken by the protecting spirits to his wake. And when he's there, some people start talking things that he didn't like, talking about his being, I don't remember exactly what, with money, something related with money. Yeah. And he starts feeling very perturbed, and he's removed from his own wake because he was going to cause him more harm than good, right? So again, Actually, it's the next question. So let's read the next question, and then we come back to this a little bit.
327.
Yeah.
Do spirits ever watch their own burial? They frequently do, but sometimes they do not perceive what's happening if they are still in the state of confusion. Do they feel flattered by a large gathering at their burial? More so or less so, according to the sentiments of the people gathered there.
Okay. So depends on our level of evolution. Depends on our state after we discarnate. We can be present at our own burial, but sometimes not aware of what's going on. A lot of spirits that don't understand that they have died, that they have discarnated. They may be present, seeing all the movement without fully understand what's going on because of the state of confusion. They may be prevented from attending their own burial if it's not going to help them, if it's going to cause more harm than good, or they can actually be there in a learning experience, in a sense of how it's going to be, what's going to happen in the funeral. The number of people that go there will allow them, will make them more flattered if they still have the inferior tendencies of of the spirit that is still gives more importance to their their intellectual abilities or their importance in the spiritual world, in the physical world. We have a question here regarding question 325. Doesn't the degree of spiritual evolution influence how the spirit perceives cremation? In other words, couldn't the spirit still attach to the body, observe the decision made about its body? Well, normally cremation is a decision made by the living one, right? If you don't in most cultures, again, there are cultures that cremation is the natural way of disposing of the body. But in the Western civilization, unless you ask to be cremated, you are not going to be cremated. You are going to be buried. So if someone asks to be cremated, of course you are aware that you are going to be cremated, and the fact that you are attached, or more or not less attached to the body, doesn't really make much of a difference. You may feel, if you don't understand that you discarnated, if you are too much attached to your physical body. So those are the situations that may cause some disturbance to the spirit during cremation. But it's the same spirit. If it's not cremated, it's buried, it's going to feel the worms eating their physical body without fully understand what's going on. So the spiritual evolution, the moral evolution, absolutely influences how the spirit perceives its cremation or burial. Because if a spirit is morally evolved, even if it's not intellectually evolved, doesn't understand the process, but if it's morally evolved, it will be protected from any of those feelings that will happen with the physical body. Spirits that will have a chance to feel something are spirits too attached to their physical body, and that are spirits that didn't merit the help and assistance of the more evolved spirits when they are discarnation because of their actions during their physical life. I hope it answered your question. Okay. Okay. Next. 328, just a sec.
328. Does the spirit attend the meeting of its heirs? Almost always. God wills it for its instruction as punishment for guilty ones. It is there that the spirit judges what its heirs' declarations of affection are really worth. All sentiments become patent to the spirit, and the disappointment it feels in seeing the greed of those who divide up the spoils makes their true sentiments very clear. However, their time shall also come.
Okay, so some translations of this question talks about does the spirit attend the reading of its will? The original in French doesn't mention the will, talks about meetings of its heirs, but you can interpret this as it was custom at that time, and in some places it's still the custom, right? That you read the will with all the participants of the family present to the reading of the will. So that's what Kardec is asking the spirits here, if the spirit is going to attend. But you can expand to any meetings, right? The family meeting, for instance, the Jewish tradition is that you have 1 week of prayers every day in the afternoon. You cover all the mirrors and you dress appropriately. So every day during 1 week you have prayers. I think at by the end of the day, 5 p.m., something like that. I don't remember exactly. So that's their custom. Are there spirit that the deceased one going to be there? If they can, if it's going to help them according to their level, and if it's important one way or another, right? If it's important for them to feel loved because it's their, it's going to help their progress, they may have the opportunity. If it's going to make them see what their actions during their physical lives cause to their heirs negatively, they may be able to see also to understand the harm they have done to the family. So the disappointment here of seeing the greed, which may be a consequence of their own actions or not. So again, our connections with our family, our loved ones, is a connection that stays and stays after the discarnation of the physical body. So we can be present or not. Again, we go to André Luiz in the book Nosso Lar. He describes he spent a long time in the lower zones, then was taken to Nosso Lar, and it took the whole book for him to be able to go back and see his family. So he was not present in any of these situations, right? And then when he finally meets his family, we understand why the spirits didn't want him to go to see his family too soon, because what he finds there, it's not what he was expecting. He finds that his former wife erased all the signs of his existence in the house, right? So again, it was a learning experience for him, but he had to be prepared because he deserved. He had to be prepared. Again, the spirits always told him that it was not advisable. They never forbid him to go. They told him it was not advisable, and he listened to that. In the book Memoirs of a Suicide, there is a group of spirits that they are all advised not to go back to their families because it was not going to help them. They were all suicides. So they didn't want, the protecting spirits didn't want them to see what happened to their families because it could affect their recovery. One of them ended up insisting, and ended up going, and it was a disaster for him because the way he found his former wife and 2 children. It caused him so much pain that it delayed his progress for a very long time. So again, we can be protected by the spirits if we merit it to be protected, to see what's happening with our loved ones we leave behind. Okay.
329 is the instinctive respect of people for the dead in all times and among all cultures the result of the intuition of a future existence. It is its natural consequence. Without it, such respect would have no meaning.
Again, it's interesting, right? Because if you go throughout all civilizations from the very ancient times, you always the reverence for the dead in different forms, in different ways, but you will always see the respect of different civilizations for the dead, which tells us that, again, instinctively, we know that we survive the death of the physical body. Because if there was no survival of the physical body, instinctively, we wouldn't be paying homage to the dead ones, right? If all civilizations throughout history are always paying respects to the dead in different forms, it means that instinctively we know that we are eternal souls, that we survive the death of the physical body. It's natural consequence, as the Spirit says, and without it, such respect will have no meaning. If there was no survival of the soul, why would we be paying so much attention to the dead ones, the ones that our ancestors that left before us? Okay. All right. Any final questions on funerals, burial, discarnation? So this is the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7. So chapter 6 was spirit life, returning to the spiritual home. Chapter 7 is the next step. Now we are there in the spiritual world and we are going to return to a new incarnation. What happens and how we face a new incarnation when we are back to the physical world. So the first item is preludes to the return. Okay, we're going to be talking a lot about reincarnation. Okay, go ahead.
330. Do spirits know the time when they will have to reincarnate? They can sense it like a blind man who feels the fire he is approaching. They know they must return to a body just as you know you must die someday, but without knowing when it will happen. Is reincarnation, therefore, a necessity of spirit life as death is a necessity of corporal life? Yes, it is.
Okay, so when we talk about reincarnation, first thing is a natural law. So it's going to happen whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not. We will only stop reincarnating when we become perfected spirits. When we reach the level of perfection, like we studied before, then we no longer need to reincarnate. We can incarnate on special missions like Jesus incarnated on earth to bring his message to us. So until then, we need to reincarnate. Now, there are different types of spirits back in the spiritual world. There are those that know reincarnation, like most of those in the Eastern civilization, that they believe in reincarnation without fully understanding how it works, right? They may think that we can reincarnate as animals but they believe in reincarnation. So it's easier for them to arrive there and be told that they need to reincarnate. They are going to understand and accept. Here in the Western civilization, where reincarnation is not so common, you can find people that believe in reincarnation, which according to the last Pew research here in the US is like 30%. For those, the understanding of reincarnation makes things easier. If they are going to be afraid or not, if they are going to be comfortable or not, is a different story. Then there are those that are religious and believe that we go to heaven, hell, or purgatory, and we're waiting for the final judgment or things like that. They may go back to the spiritual world and carry their beliefs and continue not accepting reincarnation. So they are going to reincarnate without understanding they are going to reincarnate, but it's going to happen. They will enter into this state of confusion without understanding what's going on, and they will be connected to a new physical body that is beginning to form. And there are those who don't care, one way or another. They are there interested in other things in the spiritual world. They are going to be less resistant to reincarnation because they are not involved in the process, and they are going to come to reincarnate as a natural law, as it is a natural law. They compare to as a necessity of spirit life, as death is a necessity of corporeal life. There are people incarnates that fear death tremendously without doing anything about it. Death will come to them, will come to all of us, death of the physical body. There are those that fear death and then decides to study more about it, to believe, to look for different spiritual truths. So they prepare themselves one way or another to the death of the physical body. And, it will be easier for them to transition. And those that are materialists, with still a minority, that do not believe in the survival of the spiritual, of the spirit, they are going to also die, and they are also going to wake up in the spiritual world, but it will take them a longer time, but it will happen. It's a natural law. So it's the same way reincarnation is a natural law. Whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, accept it or not, we will have to reincarnate. Okay?
$331. Do all spirits concern themselves with their approaching reincarnation? There are those who never give it a thought, who do not even comprehend it. It depends on the degree of their advancement. For some, uncertainty about their future life is a punishment.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, right? There are those that never give it a thought of the reincarnation, who doesn't understand the process, the concept. They are too focused on other things in the spiritual life. And when it's the time to reincarnate, they will reincarnate. Depends on their degree of advancement, in the sense that the more we understand, the better it's going to be our reincarnation planning, right? For those that want to understand a little bit more about reincarnation from the spiritual side, what happens in the spiritual world, I recommend the book Missionaries of the Light, which is the third book of the André Luiz collection, which we have in chapters 11, 12, and 13. They go to the reincarnation planning building there in the spiritual world. André Luiz learns a lot about reincarnation there, the process of different people, and then the start of the process of the reincarnation of Sigismundo, which is the main subject of the second part of the book, where we follow exactly how the reincarnation process happens. It's the best description of reincarnation from the spiritual side point of view. It's always an example of how the process works of reincarnation, okay? And I highly recommend for those interested in learning more about the mechanics of reincarnation to read Missionaries of the Light.
$332. Can spirits hasten or delay the moment of their reincarnation? They may hasten it through strong desire. They may also delay it if they recoil from the upcoming trial, since among spirits there are cowardly and indifferent ones. However, they do not delay it with impunity. They will suffer for it, like those who refuse the medicine that can restore them to health.
Okay, so can the spirits hasten and delay the moment of their reincarnation? Yes. We just have to read the book Liberation. Gregorio is there for 500 years and hasn't reincarnated. There are spirits that, for different reasons, try to postpone their reincarnation because they are afraid of it, because they are involved in some work in the spiritual world. Sigismundo tried to delay his reincarnation, going back to Missionaries of the Light, because he was working there in the spiritual world. He was taking care of an institution, and when he was facing with the challenges of the new reincarnation with his father, there was an enemy from the past. He started thinking about the work he was doing there and thinking that he should stay there in the spiritual world a little more to continue his work in the institution. So he was there working in the spiritual world. Could he delay his incarnation a little bit? Yes, he could. He's convinced that it's better for him to reincarnate, and he accepts it. But he could delay. We can delay, but we cannot delay indefinitely. It's the natural law. We have to reincarnate. Eternity is a very long time. So we can take a very long time between incarnations, but eventually we'll have to come. On the other hand, there are spirits that are struggling so much in the spiritual world that they actually ardently desire to reincarnate to run away from themselves, in a sense, because they are immersed in guilty feelings, in other feelings of that don't allow them to find peace in the spiritual world. So they ask for a new reincarnation to get a respite from all the suffering they're going through in the spiritual world. So they may hasten it through the strong desire, delay if they are afraid or indifferent. But again, like we know here on Earth, right? If we delay doing what we are supposed to do, eventually it become more difficult, more challenging, or even very hard to do, right? It's the same thing. The more we postpone our reincarnation, the more difficult will be our reincarnation. Okay?
333. If a spirit felt quite happy in an average situation among discarnate spirits and had no ambition to evolve, could it prolong its errant state indefinitely? No, not indefinitely. Advancement is a necessity, and spirits sense it sooner or later. All must evolve. It is their destiny.
Okay. So it's what we discussed a little bit, right? We cannot postpone indefinitely. We can postpone for some time, but the natural law is the law of evolvement. We have to evolve morally and intellectually. So if we are not evolving in the spiritual world, if we are not learning anything, we are going to be brought to a new reincarnation so we can continue our journey. Going back to Gregorio, how did he open a small window of opportunity to be helped and assisted by the spirits? Because he got bored after 500 years of persecuting others and leading this world world that he was there, the lower zones, the evil world that he was living in. And when he got a little bit bored, he opened the window to be helped and assisted, and that's how he was eventually rescued. And the next step will be a reincarnation. His mother would come again to receive him as a very difficult new incarnation for everything that he had done in these 500 years he spent in the spiritual world, causing a lot of damage to others, persecuting others. So indefinitely, not possible. For some time, always possible. Okay.
334. Is the union of a soul with a particular body predestined, or is the choice made at the last moment? The spirit is always designated beforehand. In choosing the trial it wishes to undergo, the spirit asks to reincarnate, and God, who sees and knows everything, sees and knows beforehand that a particular soul will unite with a particular body.
Yeah. We are going to enter now in a series of questions that talks about the union of a soul with a new physical body and how the choices make and what are the characteristics of it. And we won't have time to do it today. So what I'm going to do is to stop here, and we are going to start in 2 weeks' time, because next week is Thanksgiving. In this question 334, because I think it's a good point for us to start when we talk about reincarnation. How does it happen, and how we end up one place or another, one family or another. I think it's a subject that we need to dedicate more time, and we have only 5 minutes left. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll start this again on 334 in 2 weeks, okay? As a reminder, again, next week is Thanksgiving week, so we won't have the book club on Wednesday, and we won't have our study of the Spirit's book on Thursday. We will have regular meetings on Mondays, Tuesday, and Sunday. This coming Sunday, which is the 4th Sunday of the month, we are going to have our Q&A session. I invite you all to join us, bring your questions. This Saturday, the lecture by the United States Spiritist Federation at 11 a.m. as usual. It's called Ask and You Shall Receive, True Stories About Prayer, presented by Marco Magalhães, okay? It should be very interesting, this Saturday, 11 a.m. So the next Saturday after Thanksgiving, we won't have a lecture, a presentation by the United States Spiritist Federation because of the Thanksgiving weekend. So we'll have, we are open here on Monday, on this Sunday, Q&A, Monday, Tuesday, and then again on Sunday. Okay? Carol, can you do the final prayer?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, John, for hosting, and thank you, Philip, for reading, and everybody here participating this evening. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together as brothers and sisters for our studies of the Spirit's book, Book 2, Chapter 6, and the start of Chapter 7. These topics would be the commemoration of the dead, regarding funerals, and the preludes to the return. Souls returning to the spirit world may take pleasure by the incarnates honoring them. Some spirits may be upset, however, if they are forgotten. Advanced spirits are less concerned about the sentiments of pride or pleasure relating to their physical form, their body, the funeral, and the reading of the last will and testament. Instinctively, we know that we do survive the death of the physical body. And historically, we have learned that cultures have expressed the respect for the dead on almost all occasions. Reincarnation is inevitable, whether we understand the process or not. Spirits can hasten and delay their reincarnation, and reincarnation occurs to help us all evolve and to advance, which is the natural law. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, the mediums, the workers, the healers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and especially for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center SGNY and all Spiritist centers throughout the world that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.